Hey y'all, Janice on the mic, back with another video. So this is another response video to a previous video that I recorded literally in 2012 or 2011. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I have gone through and privatized some of the videos that were on my channel that I feel aren't really relevant to who I am today. Not necessarily because I changed my position about these topics, but some stuff is just like, I don't care to have that stuff on my channel. But there was one video that is still up on my channel. This video from like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, is just, I've definitely evolved in my thinking, but again, I love to keep old videos on my channel, some of these old videos, to just kind of show my evolution for myself, but also as a reminder to you all that it's okay to grow and evolve out of certain states and consciousnesses. And that video, I completely sort of see how my train of thought was problematic. So essentially, like, the mindset that I was adopting in that video was one of like respectability politics. And it was based on this idea that I was sort of just indoctrinated into, that education will save us and education will be the savior for Black people. And as somebody who I just feel like I've evolved in my thinking, and I've written about this now ad nauseum, but it's obvious, and we should be at the point of our understanding where we recognize that no matter how well we dress, no matter how educated we are, no matter how much wealth and fame and notoriety we have, anti-Blackness permeates all of that, right? Anti-Blackness will still strike. And so I think there's so many examples of this, right? In my book, I have a book that I wrote called The Pink Elephant. In my book, I talked about Henry Louis Gates and what he experienced years ago, where I think he lost his key to his house. Well, for those of you who don't know who Henry Louis Gates is, he is a Harvard professor. He is the host of a show called Roots, or Finding Your Roots, on PBS. He's pretty well known, right? And he has a certain level of fame and notoriety, but he lost his keys. He was trying to get into his home, I believe, which is in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And he ended up getting the police called on him because his neighbors apparently thought he was trying to break into his home, right? We remember this story with Oprah, where Oprah visited Europe several years back, and she was racially profiled. And we know Oprah has amassed an enormous amount of wealth. So, and even like thinking back to like ASAP Rocky, right? I don't know if y'all remember, but I have like the memory of an elephant, no pun intended, but I literally have the memory of an elephant. And I remember statements that ASAP Rocky made years ago where he was basically saying he doesn't identify with the Black Lives Matter movement, and he can't relate to the Black Lives Matter movement because he lives in Soho. And the implication behind him saying that, my understanding was like, he lives a life of wealth. He's far removed from a life of poverty that maybe he once knew. I don't know his background, but I know that he has a lot of fame, a lot of notoriety, especially since he is now fathering a child with Rihanna. So now A$AP Rocky's become like more of a household name. But I remember him making those statements, and a lot of people felt like the statements were, I don't want to say tone deaf, because tone deaf is an ableist term, but the statements were just like very far removed from reality, right? It was based on this idea that like, after you make a certain amount of money, after you move out the hood, after you do this and you do that, the problems of regular Black folk no longer affect you. And I think that when A$AP Rocky got arrested, and I believe it was Sweden, we saw that this idea was actually completely false, right? That it doesn't matter how much wealth and fame and notoriety you have, anti-Blackness is global, right? And so Oprah and A$AP Rocky and Henry Louis Gates, and there's so many other examples, right? But in my book, I talked about Oprah and Henry Louis Gates, right? But there's so many examples of this where Black folks feel like, many of us feel like education is going to save us. Getting a degree is going to save us. And I have to also preface this by saying, I say this as a person who has earned and achieved the highest level of education I could get in my field, right? I have a PhD. And I'm saying this, like, education is not what's going to save me. It doesn't matter that I have a PhD. It doesn't matter how much money I have. It doesn't matter how much fame or notoriety I may amass. Anti-Blackness and racism is global, and anti-Blackness is so pervasive that all of those things don't matter. And I say all this to say, the video that I made like 10 years ago was based on this belief that respectability will save us. And I feel like education is a gateway to happiness. Education is a gateway to many things. And, you know, as a Black person in America, it's a difficult struggle sometimes, and sometimes you're going to feel like all that you do is just not nearly as good enough. But you just have to keep persevering, and you will definitely see the fruits of your labor. I know I've worked very hard to get to where I am, but I'm not even near where I want to go, and the level that I was talking about. I had watched the movie Higher Learning, right? And I had just seen the John Singleton movie Higher Learning. That was like, I think, my first time watching it. And I was just talking about this idea of education and how no matter what we go through as a people, how education will be our saving grace, right? So I just wanted to come up here. I thought about deleting that video because I was like, oh my gosh. I just rewatched it not too long ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, that video is super duper cringe. But you know what I'm saying? I think that it's important, again, for us all to recognize that the person we are today in 2022 is not going to be the same person that you are in 2032. And it's okay to acknowledge that you've made mistakes, that your former way of thinking was just removed from where you are now, or was inaccurate, or was wrong. It's totally okay. For me, I've recognized that way of thinking was wrong. Respectability is not going to save us. It doesn't matter if you have a suit and tie on. When an officer pulls you over, or when you are racially profiled, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter what's in your bank account. If you have Black skin, racism is going to, racism is pervasive, right? So I just wanted to come up here and say that because I just, I have so many cringy older videos, right? And I feel like all of us who've been making videos for a substantial amount of time have a lot of cringe content, right? I'll call it CC, cringe content. And again, I feel like it's important for one of the best traits that a person can have is the ability to admit when they're wrong and admit when a new idea has presented itself and has made them see things from a different perspective. And I remember a close friend of mine who I am no longer really in touch with. We kind of lost touch, but one of the things that he said to me that I will never ever forget is, we're having a discussion about something, and I have a habit of being like, I don't know enough about this topic to engage in this discussion, right? If I don't know a lot about something, I don't like to speak on things that I don't know a lot about. And so we were having a conversation, and I was like, I don't know. I don't even want to engage in this conversation. I don't know. I'm not educated enough about this topic to know about this. And, my thinking about this particular topic may be flawed, right? And he was like, wow, I think that is so amazing that you're able to say, I don't know about this, or I don't know a lot about this. And he really was in awe of that. And I was like, I felt like everyone was like that, but I don't feel like I'm a stubborn person. I think I am open to people changing my mind, and I love having conversations with people that I don't necessarily agree with, because I think that's when you are able to see things from a different perspective. So I say all this to say, I think it's important to keep record, even if you're not making YouTube videos, if you're writing, if you're creating any sort of content and putting it out into the world. I think it's really important to track your growth and your evolution and your train of thought and how your perspectives shift over time. And so that is the reason why, if any of you watching have dived into my older videos, if you go to my oldest videos from 2011, and 2012 and 2013 and years prior, a lot of them are cringy. I'm not gonna lie, but I left a lot of them up because I think it's important to show that I've grown and evolved in my way of thinking. I've definitely shifted, and I know that even now the woman that I am today is going to shift and change in a decade. So I think it's important that we're always in a state of consciousness where we are introspective and we stop and think about how we've evolved and and be open to changing our minds when presented with new information that helps us to see things from a different perspective. So thank y'all so much for watching. Check out my old cringy content, my CC. Thank y'all so much. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video.